ready to rumble on the Bear Debate.
Hey, this is David Kaplan from the Cap J Hood Show on ESPN 1000 and NBC Sports Chicago. Now get ready to listen and watch to Bulls 101 with Kris and Larro. Take that, Sparkles.
Hello and welcome to another great episode we have for you guys today on Bulls 101. And as usual, I am joined by my boy, my brother from another mother, Chris Amundsen. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Larro. Nice to see you after a long work day. I know you're ready to get to talk some hoops, and me too, man. Every Saturday I get to hang out with my two little kids. My wife works on Saturdays, so I always have a lot of fun, and I'm always way exhausted and ready to talk hoops at this point of the night. So thanks for being with us late as always, guys. And we got a great show for you tonight.
Oh, yeah. And, it was a long work day, but like I said to you earlier, it's always great knowing that at the end of the day on Saturdays, I got this to look forward to, talking some Bulls. But enough about us, right? We have a great guest today. Elias Schuster is in the building tonight, folks. And if you're not familiar with him, he does a lot of writing and content creating for the Bleacher Nation. And obviously it's for the Bulls, you know what I mean? He does great stuff over there. He's a former editor for the Daily Illini. So let's welcome in our guy, Elias Schuster. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here to talk some hoops after dark. We'll talk some late night basketball. This is exciting. This is a fun time.
This is when the juices get flowing is after everyone else is asleep in the real world.
Exactly. It's 11, and then all of a sudden I just start thinking all these crazy Bulls thoughts, and then I got to spew them somewhere. So it seems like the plan.
Man, I just want to say, man, like, I just feel like, we're on a roll, Chris. I feel like we have been getting some great guests on this show for a while, and Elias he just adds on to that. And I just want to say thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving us your time. But I kind of want to know a little bit more about you. So first thing first, when did you become a Bulls fan? What moment was it where you were like, you know what, this is a team I want to be a fan of or cover? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, when it comes to moments specifically, it's really hard to say just because, I mean, growing up, it was kind of like, I don't want to say an expectation, right? But you grew up in the Chicagoland area. It was like, well, who are your teams? It's like, well, these are my squad. Well, for the only ones you have to pick from are like Cubs and White Sox. But I grew up in a Cubs North Side kind of family, so it was Cubs for me. But then everything else was there. And then I always just loved basketball from a young age. I played basketball from a young age, so it was always just kind of Bulls for me. But I'm a younger guy. I mean, when I grew up, it was, I was starting. I grew up right at I was born right at the tail end of this of the Jordan era, right? So that was not. I wasn't able to fully experience all of that. So for me, it was growing up during some tumultuous times, but gaining a love for Ben Gordon and Kirk Heinrich and those backcourt bros. So it just kind of it was an expectation for me over the years. It grew and grew, and then I was always a fan of the team. And then once the D Rose era kind of tipped off, it just got that much more fun, and it grew from there. So it was just something growing up in Chicago. Always a fan. Always loved the game of basketball, and it was hard not to love that franchise and love that team with all the history and all the fun. So it was that simple, really.
You go ahead, Kris.
No, that's awesome. I know I did not grow up in Chicago, and so the expectation for me was to be a Lakers fan, and I just never. And I grew up during the three-peat. Yeah. I was kind of coming into like NBA fandom in the first place when the Lakers had their three-peat in the early 2000s, and it was fun to watch them, but I just never connected to a team. So when you mentioned like the Kirk Heinrich, Ben Gordon years, just the way that they kind of spoke to you, that was for me why I became a Bulls fan, was the Joakim Noah, Taj Gibson Bulls, right, after Derek went down and Dane got traded. Like that was what got me to stay as a Bulls fan. So it's nice to hear that it's not just, the heritage. It's not like the religious thing where like, oh, I'm Catholic. I've been Catholic my whole life, because my whole family's been Catholic. Like sports fandom can be kind of like that, like almost like a religion in that sense. And so it's nice to see that it has a lot deeper meaning than just, I just kind of grew into it. Right.
Yeah. I know for sure.
So Elias, I guess we could just hop back on the tracks for a second. So I want to know more about your writing. I want to know when did this start for you? When did you get interested in this? How did you get into this position, this opportunity to write and create content for Bleacher Nation as well?
Right. Yeah. So I went to the University of Illinois, and while I was there, I was majoring in journalism. I was on the news editorial track. So a lot of the stuff that I did while I was there, and a lot of the work that I did before I got to join Bleacher Nation, was pretty traditional stuff. I'm seeing the comments at the bottom of the screen. That's funny. No, but I was on a pretty traditional track in terms of just kind of straight reporting, doing a lot of interview work. But then kind of like later in my college career specifically, I did a lot of just multimedia work, a lot of video work, and then a lot of like column writing. And so I think from there, it gave me just a lot of versatility in the terms of the forms of content that I did, and I learned a lot more about social media. And so when I was coming out of school, I was just kind of looking for jobs in the multimedia sphere. I mean, I wanted to do a little bit of everything. I wanted to dip my toe into everything. I didn't want to go into just strict reporting. If I could do a little bit of social media, a little bit of video work, a little bit of writing, that'd be great. And so, I just applied to the Bleacher Nation job. I got to know the guys throughout that process, and they were looking for someone to start up their Bulls. They were starting a Bulls site. So I was fortunate enough to apply to that job and then go through the interview process and somehow get it. I didn't think that they were kind of hoping for an older person, and I guess I seemed old enough to them for some reason. But they were hoping for someone a little more with even more professional experience. But I think for me, it was just I think they could tell that I like the game. I love the team, and having that prior experience of dipping my toe in so many different fields and having that background of a lot of the different column writing that I did fit with the tone of what our site does, which is, analysis meets, we try to do professional analysis and news meets fandom, and we want to combine that stuff the best we can. And so I got that opportunity there. I'm very fortunate that Brett and the guys over there have kept me on as long as they have. And yeah, so just kind of grew into it. You gotta change in this world, this ever changing world of sports media specifically. You know, it's becoming more and more diverse. You gotta know how to do a little bit of everything, like you guys with the show. I mean, it's super cool that you guys get to do a live show late at night, but this is what it's becoming. You know, this is what a lot of the industry is, and it's doing little stuff like this and doing to gain more and more followers and also reach a bigger audience. And there's so many different cool things you can do. So I'm happy to be here and do stuff like this. It's fun, and I'm happy that BN has kept me on and not fired me yet. So.
Yeah, well, as Salim said, if you are a doppelganger for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, that probably helps your chances, especially with live video kind of content.
Exactly. Yeah. So now I got to pursue more live video content, right? So
Oh my God.
I will not do a Saturday night 11 p.m. no show. I'll let you guys keep this.
Thank you for letting us keep our time slot, because it's like when, I know I'm on the West Coast, but when In-N-Out when the people build an In-N-Out next to McDonald's and Jack in the Box and everything else, just sucks all the business away from everyone else, and it's just a huge line for In-N-Out. So I know that would happen to us if you did
you guys are more
live show late at night. So
no, you wouldn't have to worry about me. You guys are more established. You know what you're talking about.
Oh my Lord. It's funny, man. It's like, it's kind of like the opposite thing for me, right? I've gotten used to doing these, live shows and talking about the Bulls on video. But like, one of the things that I really want to get better at is writing. And that's something I love. I reading your stuff, like you definitely have that down. So that's the next thing for me, is getting that confidence, and getting the writing together.
Well, I will say this. I appreciate that. But when it comes to I always think, I don't know what that complex is called, but I think I have that complex where I'm shocked that I do what I do to write, because I never thought I would be majority writing. My work is majority writing. I never thought I'd be doing that, and it's because I kind of just write how I talk. So I mean, that's just sometimes I literally do a weird thing where when I'm typing, I kind of saying out loud when I'm typing most of the time. But sometimes like that, just, I don't know. I'm not trying to give advice, but if you want to just sit there and type, sometimes just type how you talk, and maybe it'll work. Sometimes that comes through the screen. You're like, I can. Sounds like I'm having a conversation with that person.
So, we've talked. We need to get to the Bulls news that just came up. We can get back to having some more doppelganger talk with Elias a little bit later, but we had some crazy kind of like catch you off guard kind of news come, because obviously we're all still high off of being able to get, Lonzo and Caruso and DeMar and Tony Bradley, so on and so on. And then out of nowhere, we kind of get punched in the gut with some news that Pat Will has a severe ankle sprain. I can say for myself that me being a Pat Will guy, it kind of really threw me for a loop. But I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Elias, I'll swing it to you first. What was your first thought about what happened with Pat Will?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like you, I was caught off guard with it too. I was pretty surprised. I think the way that the team initially announced it didn't help, because it kind of made it seem like, and not to throw them under the bus, but it just made it seem like it was, okay, he's probably gonna miss the start of the season no matter what. And so then having hat tips of Rob Schaefer from NBC Sports Chicago, having him get that clarification of, okay, it actually happened 9 days. He's 9 days into the recovery already. That's a good thing. So that was a nice little ad after that initial scare. But yeah, like you, I was initially thrown off by that, just because he kind of the team very much decided not to invest in that position heavily this offseason. It was clear that the front court depth was a huge issue, and I'm sure we'll kind of get more into some of that. But it was just they were kind of all in on him. They're like, he's young, he's going to stay healthy, he's going to be our guy, he's going to be a defensive anchor for our starting lineup. So to see him go down, I think it really just stressed probably, and I'm sure it did internally as well, just like how weak that position is. because there's just, if he goes down for an extended period amount of time, I mean, what are you going to do in the starting lineup? You can move DeMar there over to the 4, but when you're talking about like needing defensive stoppers in the front court and rim protectors, you got to move to Derrick Jones Jr., who's already undersized at the position. I think he could play it fine, but do you want to rely on him in the starter spot? Probably not. Elias Johnson, 49 career games? Like, I like the guy, don't get me wrong, I like the upside, but he's played like 49 career games. So it's hard to move and just trust somebody like that. So it was a scary situation. I think maybe it put a little more emphasis on the front office to realize, like, hey, we have this $5 million trade exception from the Daniel Tice signing trade this offseason. Let's try to use that maybe sooner than later when the season gets going and find a little more depth up front, because it really emphasized the hole in this roster. But I'm glad at the end of the day that it appears that, you know, if anything, he'll miss a couple of games and he should be back on the floor relatively early.
Yeah. So, Elias, you mentioned the way that the Bulls announced it was concerning. First of all, I got the Shams notification, and on my phone it only showed the first 2 lines, and it showed basically Patrick Williams has suffered a severe, and like that was it. I was like, I'm trying to open my phone as fast as possible. Because I'm like, did he like tear his Achilles? Like what? Because we already got like Aaron Sumner, Edmund Sumner news already.
Right.
Achilles. I'm like, please no. But you mentioned, then we get the 9 days later. So my second question was then, why didn't we hear about it 9 days ago? Like, why is it taking so long? Like, what are the reporters doing? What is the team doing? Like, why are we not hearing about this? And as Luis mentioned in the comments, like he was at the Sky game just the other night with no boot, no crutch. So that's a good sign.
Right.
But the Bulls have a history of not handling injuries very well and handling the public relations portion of the injuries poorly as well. So
yeah.
I mean,
it was it's hard. Yeah, it's definitely the way that all happened was weird. I'm glad that like we said, it is what it is, and I you know, at least he has 9 days into the recovery. But it is weird that they waited that long to report it. Also, it's weird that they used the word severe at this stage, because if he is walking around without a boot and without crutches, you know, like he is okay, and if there is a possibility that he returns before the season even starts, you know, is it severe? Is it maybe just moderate? Like what? So it is weird. I agree. I don't know what the situation is. I was hoping that this kind of stuff might stop once they changed the infrastructure around the training staff. You know, they got a new head athletic trainer. So I don't know. We'll see. Between that and the Kobe situation this offseason, it was unfortunate. But this one was in the building, and the Kobe one wasn't. So, you know, this one at least seemed to be at the Advocate Center. So yeah, I don't know why it took this path when they initially announced it. I don't know why they waited so long, but
yeah, exactly. And sorry, Larro, just and the second thought I had real quick was just you highlighted the lack of front court depth there, or lack of proven front court depth, and that's going to be a key factor, I think, to watch during the season. Like our friend Mark Caranzolas, who runs Bulls HQ, has said a couple times this offseason that he thinks that Nikola Vucevic is the most important player this season, just because of how unable we are as a team to replace his production if he's out for any extended period of time. And I think I'd agree with that. But Patrick Williams, the rim protection without Patrick Williams is almost non-existent. You mentioned DJJ, Derrick Jones Jr., that can kind of do that in spurts, but he's like 6'5", 6'6", or whatever. Like, he's not a power forward in the traditional sense. And you can kind of plug him in there for a few games if you need to, but yeah, that's going to be a concern. Sorry, Larry, I'll let you.
No, it's all good, brother. It's all good. But I just kind of wanted to bring up the point of, like, today at work, I was shout out Cash Considerations. I was listening to their pod today, talking about Pat Will, and Ricky O'Donnell was saying that he was at the Sky game himself, and he did notice that Pat was walking with no limp. There was you couldn't tell that he had like an ankle sprain. So that's good news as well. So, but I kind of wanted to talk about that, right? So we already brought up Alizé, we brought up DJJ. Like, if right now today, if we knew for sure that Pat's not going to be there opening day, what would be the lineup that you guys would throw out there? I can start with Kris first this time.
I thought about this one because I can see kind of two approaches to it. Number one is just put the best guy there, like your best player in the starting lineup from the bench. And if that's the case, I think it's got to be Alex Caruso, especially because of the defensive impact that he's going to have. And Patrick, you're trying to replace Patrick Williams' impact. You don't have a front court defender that's got that kind of impact on the floor, I think. So I think Caruso is probably your next best bet. The other approach that I could see them taking is, hey, we want the bench to build chemistry together, so we don't want to like disrupt that unit necessarily. So if it were that, I would probably say Derek Jones Jr. would probably be my guess, but it depends on what they have for the bench rotation, because the bench in my mind right now is Alex Caruso, Kobe White, Troy Brown Jr., Alize Johnson, and Tony Bradley, like that kind of 5-man unit. I don't think they're going to be playing a lot of 5-man unit together, but that's kind of like who I think of in the depth chart. But I am not sure if what they're going to do with Tony with Derek Jones Jr. at that spot, because I think he has a pretty good argument for being in that bench. Mm-hmm. So if he's not in the bench unit, I would throw him in there. If he is, then I would throw whichever one of Alize Johnson and Troy Brown Jr. is not in that starting unit to kind of. So I heard that Troy Brown Jr. I thought was a good suggestion there, just to kind of give you a little bit more size, but it's not ideal no matter what you do. So now that I've stolen all the answers that are possible, Elias, give you your answer.
No, I mean it's so so I think that if I was Donovan, what I would initially do is I'd probably move DeMar over to the 4. If Pat was going to miss time, it would be DeMar over the 4, and then I would probably just start with a 3-guard lineup with Caruso, like how you started. But if he didn't want to go that route, and I can understand him not wanting to go that route, because especially with Kobe out at the beginning of the season, you really hurt your bench if you're taking Caruso kind of out of that, because he's going to be the kind of that leader, that second unit. I mean, him and Kobe will kind of go back and forth, but I think Caruso is going to kind of be that spark plug off the bench. So they might not want to take him off the bench, and so maybe you just put Troy Brown Jr. in there, because he gives you at least a little bit of, it gives you that perimeter defense. He can kind of be that just scrappy guy. I don't think he's not the type that's going to shoot you in the foot, when he's out there. Caruso's that way too, but I just think that, and also I do think that Troy Brown Jr. gives you a little bit more scoring upside potentially. Caruso is definitely the more proven player, but if TBJ can at least just like start to hit a little bit more shots, I think he's going to be a pretty good rotation player for you. So I wouldn't hate to see him slide into the small forward spot, but just if they wanted to keep DeMar really badly, just for like the synergy and the chemistry building, just that backcourt, if they wanted to keep him at the 3, I'd probably look to just go Derek Jones Jr. at the 4. It's not ideal, but I would definitely take him over Alize Johnson, just because I think, like I mentioned before, 49 games, it's hard to say what you're going to get from him. I'd be okay if he gets some minutes off the bench, but I'd be so scared to just put him into a starting spot right away. So I wouldn't hate Derek Jones Jr. getting just a chance. This all depends on training camp, who looks good, who doesn't. But when he was with Miami, Derek Jones Jr., when he was with Miami, that the 4 was where he thrived the most. And I was kind of shocked when he went to Portland and they didn't give him that chance, because while he's undersized in the position, he's got a 7-foot wingspan, freak athlete. Yeah, he's skinnier, so he's going to get bullied around a little bit by more traditional size front court players. But I think it was like when he was with Miami, probably he played the majority of his minutes at the 4 while he was there, and I think he had like he almost had a +5 on-off differential when he played at the 4 for Miami in 2018 or 2019-20. So, I think he's shown that he can be an efficient scorer around the rim. He's a good slasher, has great length. His block rate was super high when he was with Miami and he played at the 4. I think it was in like the 99th percentile or something ridiculous. So, like he can get in there and he can kind of mess things up and do enough for you, I think, at the position to eat some time there. So I think he'll get a spot in the rotation early on. I think TBJ is going to beat him out if we're looking at a 9-man here. So I think DeMar is going to be staggered into that second unit probably and play the 4 when things are normal. But I do think this team has wanted Derek Jones Jr. since the front office, since they arrived. It seemed like, he was reported as one of their first free agent gets potentially before he went to Portland. So I think the fact that they finally got their hands on him, they're interested in playing him. And I think we should expect him to get at least some time at the beginning of the year. And if Pat's out, maybe that's just at the 4. Maybe they just go for it. So.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys like takes on this, and I think if I had to choose right now, if I had to choose right now, it would probably be DJJ because his wingspan, his leaping ability, and his strength is the defense. So if we had to, let's say in retrospect, it was what 9-15. So let's say he misses 2 games, Pat will. I think I could. I think I would be okay with experimenting and throwing DJJ out there and see what it looks like. I mean, because obviously offense is not going to be a problem. So if he could just be a cutter on offense, a lob threat, stretching teams vertically as well, and defensively just being I think he can be a disruptive on the weak side as a rim protector. His leaping ability alone, and I think he has some pretty good instincts defensively.
I mean, he can be off-brand. It's like, because when you think about it, it's like, can he just be off-brand Patrick Williams for 2 nights? Like, probably. Can he just be like, that's all you need? Because I mean, he's not going to have the upside of like a catch and shoot corner 3. I mean, Pat has that down better, and he's not going to be able to hit he's not really going to be able to hit a mid-range shot for you. So offensively, you're not going to get anything nearly the same probably. But at least defensively, it's like, okay, for 2 games, can you get similar stuff? Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think you probably could. And so I agree. I think, if you want to just like get this backcourt to mesh and he's only missing a couple games, why not just sub in, a guy like that? And then you also don't really critically ruin the bench rotation either with a guy like Caruso or even TBJ. Like those guys can get used to whatever their roles are too. So
yeah, I think you guys might have talked me into Derek Jones then as a replacement.
Okay, well, let me bring up this name. Okay, because I feel like if we're talking about DJJ and his, lack thereof offensive, ability other than like leaping. But let's say Stanley makes the team. Would you think about, throwing a 6'7" guy that you could play him off ball? You can also play him on ball. Defensively, obviously, point of attack. Would you think about maybe experimenting with him?
Not in the starting lineup, but I mean, I wouldn't do it in the starting lineup. I just think like, again, I guess like you said, offense isn't really a problem, so I guess I shouldn't be too concerned about this. But like, man, that guy on offense, like, it's just ridiculous. Like I think his I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but like if you look at like his percentile, his like estimated like offensive box plus minus, it's like so bad. It's just, and he's somebody who just like if the ball's in his hands, he can turn the ball over easily. But like you said, offense might not matter. So defensively, yeah, he's obviously a fine, solid defender. I think he's going to stay in the league for several more years because of that. Mm-hmm. But I just think I would still pick someone over. I would still pick like a guy like Derek Jones Jr. just over him, just because I think you get you know what you're getting a little bit more. But I wouldn't. I mean, in terms of if the rotation is limited, the starting lineup's limited. If Stanley Johnson makes the team, which I think he will, if you want to give him some short minutes here and there to see what you get, I wouldn't hate it because, like you said, the defensive upside's there. It's just that's all you got in him. So.
I just continue to think of ideas, right? So, okay, with the Pat Will situation, right? Let's say the ankle is more intense than it is, right?
Come on. Don't put that evil on us.
What do you think I'm going to say? What do you think I'm going to say?
I want Patrick Williams to be miraculously healed tomorrow.
Okay.
Don't put that evil on me.
I just knocked on wood. Don't worry. I knocked on my desk. Okay.
But let's say, would that make AK and Billy say, you know what, like Stanley's cool and all, but like maybe we need to add on Tyler Cook to have like more of a traditional 4. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Luis has a name for us, Noah Vonleh, who has not been signed to my knowledge. He
get more traditional size for sure with Noah. Yeah.
He could hold it down.
I don't think it's a bad. I mean, yeah, for I think the last 2 roster spots are going to go to, both Johnsons. I think that's probably Johnson will probably get it. The second two-way spot's interesting. I don't know what's going to happen there. I wouldn't hate if, if Matt Thomas agrees to go on that contract just because you get some extra shooting if you needed it. But yeah, the Tyler Cook thing's interesting. Since he was at Iowa, I always thought he was a good player. I liked watching him. I covered those teams, and so he was kind of always fun to watch. But I just think, and he does offer you a little bit more traditional size. But I just think I don't know, out of the options that they have at training camp, it feels like one, they want Alize and he'll be there. I just think that's not a question. He'll take up one of the spots. And then should we get Ben Simmons? Oh, this should be something we talk about. But yeah, I just think Alize is going to be there. And then Stanley, I would pick Stanley probably over Tyler Cook just because you have way more games with Stanley. So like I said, while he might be a nothing on offense, like I at least do know with Stanley that like you're going to get adequate defensive play if you're going to put him out there for 10 minutes. Like I do trust that he'll at least give me that on the defensive end. Cook, he was okay with his stint in Detroit last year. I just still don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him. There's a little bit more of the unknown, and with the team who's trying to win now, I'd rather just take whoever's going to give me a little bit more of what I know.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Ben Simmons, I think would solve our defensive problems. Just saying.
I agree. Yeah.
If that Australian brother was coming to this town called Chicago, I don't know. I might do some cartwheels, man. I don't know. I'm a big guy. Me doing cartwheels is saying a lot, man. I'm just saying. But
wait, I gotta ask you now. Just completely random. Would you trade DeMar DeRozan for Ben Simmons? Like, picks aside, would you swap those players if you could on this team?
Are you asking me or are you asking Eli?
Both of you guys. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I think I would. If you're just doing a one-on-one swap?
No. I mean, like you'll add picks or whatever. I'm just saying, like, would you rather have basically DeMar on this squad or Ben Simmons? This is a tough one. I just sprung on you guys, but
it is tough. I just the thing with me, it's probably. I mean, probably like there's probably people who are watching or listening just be like, well, duh, DeMar or Ben, duh, Ben, because like the upside and everything. It's just for me, my mind immediately goes like, well, what's the transaction? How many picks am I giving up? Yeah. Like, what is the deal? So that's why it's hard for me to answer because like, would I like to have Ben Simmons or DeMar DeRozan? Ben Simmons is the answer, but I just don't. But then when I'm thinking about what the trade is and the transaction, my head just goes all over the place. So it's hard for me to say. But there's no doubt that like I think Ben Simmons. I'm not like a huge Ben Simmons truther. I honestly I even think Donovan Mitchell should have won Rookie of the Year, but I've never been a huge like Ben Simmons dude. But I do understand that he's one of the like a generational defensive player. I think he's getting a little too much hate when it comes to like, well, this guy sucks. He's not actually going to be good. It's like, no, this dude's still going to be an all-star. Like he's still, if he gets his own team and he just gets his head right, he's going to be good. So I just think so I would definitely take him on the team. It's just when you take it gets difficult when you talk about he's making $150 million over the next several years and then all that stuff. So.
Eli,
it's a hard question, Chris. It's a hard question.
Eli, we don't have to think about the money. We don't have to think about the $150 million right now. Okay, let's not think about that. Right? Let's just think of it in that vacuum, just for fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Just for fun.
So, well,
for fun,
on the
it's
subject,
fun as hell. It's fun as hell if he's here. Yeah, no, I can't get behind the fun.
But there's an early season storyline to watch, obviously around the NBA. But I know there's ones we want to talk about with the Bulls, right, Larro?
Yeah. Well, wait. Before we get to that,
I'm leading. See it now. I'm trying to lead. I'm trying to lead the tangent that I got us on back into the show.
Oh yeah, you're trying to make up for what you did.
Yes. Yeah,
well.
Now
okay.
I'm stepping on Larro's toes. So I apologize.
No, brother. No. It's totally fine, man. Hey, look, I love it. But anyway, so. Some predictions, man, for the Bulls. What are some? It doesn't necessarily have to be records or anything like that, but what are some like cool, some fun, or some predictions for this team? I want to hear what you got, Elias. What you got, man?
Well, I think I don't know. I got to think about like we want to talk about like early on, just for like the season as a whole. What exactly are we want? What area do we want to talk about?
So okay, for the first part, first question, I'll just give you a specific one. All right. So, what are we expecting, Zach? Right? Because a lot of the talk is like, how can Zach get more efficient? Like, is Zach the guy that can be a one on a team? So I guess what I want to know is like, what's your prediction for Zach? In terms as a whole.
Yeah. So I think that, I do think it's going to be really difficult for him to be any more efficient than he was last season. It's just like, yes, one would think, well, with all this more help and all this stuff, like maybe it's just last season. I don't think people really understand how statistically amazing last season was for him, like, and for what he did. And also just around the league, it was like an odd year in terms of just like sheer bucket getting. The efficiency that some players were doing it at was absolutely crazy. So I think it might be hard for him to match that, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a better player. I think he's going to be a better player for sure. I think that having this help around him is going to make him look more like a number one. I do understand the question of like, well, is he going to be like, is he a number one on a championship team? Like, no, probably not. Like, I'm not trying to bust anyone's balls here, but like, that's just, I don't think he's the number one on a championship team. But could he be a guy that leads you to the playoffs? Like, yeah. And it's the same thing with like Bradley Beal. Like, is Bradley Beal a number one on a championship team? I don't know how many people are going to say yes about that. Like, I don't know for sure how many people are going to say that Beal will be like the one to lead like a team fully by himself to the championship. He's not like of that echelon, I don't think. So, but I think at the end of the season, the way I look at it, at least, is I think LaVine and Beal are going to be pretty similar by the end of this year. As long as LaVine can have a winning season, get his team to the playoffs, I think he's going to be on like that same tier as a guy like Bradley Beal, because there's so many people around the league who look at Beal better, even though the two of them have been very close. But it's just because Beal has had a couple winning seasons under his belt. I understand he's led the league. He's obviously been someone who's led the league in scoring, and he's done it consistently. So for me, that's two things with LaVine. If he wants to take the next step, it's just do what you did last year again. Be efficient. It doesn't have to be as efficient, but be efficient. Be one of the more like powerful scorers in the league, and then also improve a little bit on defense. And you're going to be a top shooting guard in the league for sure in people's eyes. So I think by the end of the year he does that, just because he has more help than ever before. He has people who I think his defense will take a step in the right direction, because there's a lot of offensive pressure that's now finally off his back. And we saw at the Olympics, if he puts a little more focus into it, he can play adequate, defense. He's not going to be above average, but he can play average defense if he needs to. And so, yeah, it's not any sort of like hot take, but I just think by the end of the year, we are looking at Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is going to be worth the money he'll be getting by next offseason. People are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. The contract he's getting, he's worth it. It's not because the free agency's crap. It's not because the Bulls just need someone. It's like, no, that money makes sense for him because he is one of the best pure scorers in the league, and he's one of the best shooting guards in the league.
Well said. Well said. And my prediction specifically for Zach is, I think not only is that reputation going to change, I think that statistically he's going to be an average or better defender statistically. Like, I think the numbers, like, I think defensive EPM is going to like him more this year. And you mentioned that Zach has some help. I don't think people realize Zach has never had a top 100 player on his roster on the Bulls.
Right.
Now, there's a caveat. Otto Porter Jr. was ranked like 97th.
He was.
Something.
Yeah.
But he never played. He's never, as we know too well, that Otto Porter, who was supposed to be our star, a really nice piece next to Zach, because he was 27, is not really 27 in real life, apparently. But now we've got
like 62.
Yeah. Now we've got not only a top 100 player, but we've got 3 in the top 100 now besides Zach, which is Vooch, DeMar, and Lonzo Ball. And I think Caruso's probably somewhere in like the low hundreds. And I think he'll be better. But yeah, I think your predictions are right on. I don't think they're wild at all. In fact, I was hoping you'd say like he will be the number one shooting guard in the entire league.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm not.
He's going to make the
I don't
super
think
max.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that he's the. Well, I would love. Hey, if he made all, I do. Well, I guess like a hot take. I think he could definitely make an All NBA team. Like, if the Bulls. I don't know if that's kind of hot takey, but I think he can make an All NBA team relatively easily as long as the Bulls are a playoff team. If they compete for a legitimate playoff spot, if they're the Knicks of last year, right? Like we saw Julius Randle do it. If they're the Knicks, maybe not even the 4th seed, but if they can creep past the play-in tournament and get like a 6th seed spot, which again, it's not like I'm saying that's easy, but if they can do that and he's the number 1 guy on the team, he's shooting efficiently, he's scoring around 27, 28 a game. It's going to be hard for him not to be an All-NBA. The guard position's hard. Obviously, there's a lot of really good guards. It's easier to make it for a front court spot, but it wouldn't be shocking to me if he can get an All-NBA team just because when it's the Bulls too, we got to forget it's the Bulls. Like once the Bulls are good, like there's going to be once the team is good and competing, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a huge spotlight on them. Like it's one of the biggest markets in the league, so that team will be talked about. And it's like the Knicks. Once the Knicks got good and they were in the playoffs, you couldn't stop hearing about the Knicks. And it's going to be the same thing with the Bulls as long as they have a winning record, and that helps you when it comes to those All NBA cases.
Wasn't it? Was it? I think Zach Lowe is somebody that said he thought that Zach was an All NBA player last year before his ankle.
Yeah, I was going to say if he hadn't gone down with that ankle and they made the play-in, like if they had been where the Wizards were, I think he would have
he might have been
All NBA.
Yeah, no, for real.
And then we also had who was it? Was it I think Zach Lowe might have been a part of this as well with Nick Friedel saying that they should have traded for Bradley Beal because Bradley Beal is more of the franchise player, I guess. So
at the beginning of the season, they said, I don't remember who it was, but I think it might have been Brian Windhorst and someone on their podcast. I think they said like, man, if the Bulls want to get into the Beal conversation, it would take Zach LaVine and 3 first-round picks. And I was like, what? Are we thinking about?
I just find it hard
player?
because LaVine, the whole LaVine Beal thing, and I have like no hate for Beal. I understand why I understand he's a great player, but I just think that at this stage of LaVine's career, doing what he did last season, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's on the brink of being, like we'll have to see. Like I said, consistency is key, but he's on the brink of doing what Beal does, and Beal is somebody who hasn't. It's not like he's been in the playoffs a ton the past couple of years, so. I do believe that Beal is I understand him being ranked higher than LaVine 100%. He should be ranked higher than LaVine right now. But if you're telling me that he's like ESPN did, what if Beal's 11th and LaVine's 33? You're going to tell me they're that far off?
No
I don't
way.
think so. It's so hard to believe they're that far off.
Like I would put Beal more around 20 and Zach around 25-ish, like kind of in that in that range. Maybe Beal late teens to 20. But you're right. He needs to earn it. But Salim said it here. Zach had a better season on both ends of the floor than Beal did statistically and impact wise. But he's been to the playoffs. He made the playoffs again last year with Russ.
And it's consistency. He's led the league. Yep. He's been in one of the top scorers in the league several years in a row. When you're doing that, you'll get the respect you deserve. So it's the same thing with LaVine. He's got to at least you got to be in the hunt, and then he's got to do what he did last year again. And if he does it again, I think he'll get the respect that people think he deserves.
I'm excited for that. I can't wait till people stop talking to me about Zach being the worst defender in the NBA and all he does is dunk. I literally had a comment like 2 days ago that said, all he does is dunk. How is he better than Beal? Anyways. Wild stuff. That's going to change.
Wow, man. Like,
we got to get off Zach LaVine. We'll be here for 2 hours. So.
I know, man. But, one last thing. Like, it bodes well that, like, every year of him being a Bull, he's, like, improved. So, I mean, yeah, he's got to be consistent, but I think he's been consistently improving his,
That's a great point. That's a great point.
So,
he doesn't just improve. He takes, like, significant leaps every year in categories we never thought he would be good at. Like his playmaking this year blew my mind in comparison to where he was last year. Blew my mind. So I'm ready to have my mind blown again.
Move on. I did want to talk about another player, right? First, I'm going to ask you a prediction of how he's going to be used, but I would also like how you would use them or him. And DeMar DeRozan. How do you think Billy's going to ask DeMar to play here in Chicago?
Who wants to take it? Kris, you want to go?
Yeah,
Sure.
let's go, Kris. Let's go, Kris.
Sure.
Let's go, Kris.
I mean, I think you have to put the ball in DeMar's hands in that starting lineup, because not necessarily because that's always the best option, but because I think putting DeMar off ball has not been a very successful strategy at this point. And I think it plays to Zach and Vooch's strengths to be off ball. I think both of them have significant gravity and are smart passers. Zach was one of the most efficient cutters in the league last year. And I think Vooch is severely underrated on the offensive end, even though everyone knows that he's an offense-only center, or that's what people talk about him as. I think he's really underrated on this team. And he really makes DeMar's job work. He really makes that pick and roll, that pick and pop action work. And Zach being a cutter in a Vooch DeMar pick and roll is just a cheat code. I mean, it's just unfair to the rest of the league to have to defend them. And then if you've got guys like Caruso, Kobe, Pat Will, Lonzo Ball that are all capable shooters to good shooters around the perimeter, that the offense is going to be hard to stop. So I think DeMar's going to be your de facto point guard. He's going to be your primary creator to create the initial advantage, get the defense into rotation. As far as so that's how I would use him. And I think Billy's going to have to do that. And we've seen Billy run 3-guard lineups, so he can do that with Zach, DeMar, and Lonzo. And I think he can do that really effectively because two of those 3 guys have played off ball and are very good at playing off ball. DeMar is not so good. So my worry is more about what do you do with DeMar, in a bench unit, or if he doesn't have the ball in his hand, what's he going to do? That's more my concern.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I'm right there with you. I think I wrote about this a couple weeks ago in terms of everyone being fearful of the meshing between LaVine and DeRozan. I don't really like you. I mean, you brought up some of the reasons. I don't see it being a huge problem, and it's just because LaVine is somebody who has been asked to play on ball far more than he needs to or should be over the past couple of years. And I think people just assume he's this ball dominant, he's a high usage guy, obviously because he's a high volume scorer. But they just assume he's this ball dominant guy. But it's like, no, he doesn't have to be that. He's been forced to be that because the Bulls have made him that. So It's like, if you add DeRozan into the picture here, that's a guy who is a very solid half court playmaker. And I get in a ton, and I won't go into too much of a tangent on this, but I get in a fight with so many. Maybe you guys saw this on Twitter, but I've just been like back and forth with people about Lonzo Ball, assist totals, and all this stuff, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, Lonzo Ball is not. He's not going to be racking up. I don't think he's going to be racking up 8 assists a night, 7 assists a night. Like people think that's what he's going to be doing. No, this is a transition guy. Like if you know his game, he works. He's great at pushing the pace. He's a good ball mover. He's a guy who pushes the pace and transition. But when it comes to half court offense, he's not running the pick and roll. He's not somebody who's going to be racking up assists in the half court. Who does that well? DeRozan. He's the better half court playmaker. So I think, and you brought it up, Kris, DeRozan off ball is nothing. It's just he doesn't do anything. and that's the thing. LaVine can actually do things off the ball. And so that's why I agree. I think it's gonna have to be DeRozan is somebody who is running the offense in the half court. I actually think this team's gonna play a little bit slower than people think they're gonna play. A lot of people think they're gonna be sprinting up and down the court because of Lonzo, and they're have plenty of fast break opportunities and will definitely push it. But I think they're going to play slower than some people think because of DeRozan's game being such a good half-court pick and roll maestro, and then having a guy like Vucevic who is such a good screener and pick and pop guy. So they're going to want to do plenty of that. And then when you have LaVine, like you said, this is a guy who I think was second in points per possession in cutting last season. This is a guy who shot upwards of 48% on catch and shoot threes last season. This is a guy who he can play off the ball perfectly fine. So I agree with you 100%. It's going to be, I think DeRozan's going to see a lot of half-court action, a lot of the half-court playmaking, and then LaVine will get the ball when he wants it. He's the number one guy. If he wants the ball in his hands, he'll have it. But I think he's going to understand, too. He's going to be like, thank God, I finally have somebody else who could do a little bit here, and then I can focus on using my athleticism and getting some easy corner threes and doing what he does. So And like you said, the Vucevic addition is key. That's one of the best screeners in the league. Combine that with one of the best pick and roll players in the league, and DeRozan, and you have to put the ball in DeRozan's hands a lot of the time to get stuff done.
You know, I kind of want to touch on this because I went back and I watched. I'm an idiot. I watched maybe eight games of the Pelicans with Lonzo because I always hear or read on Twitter, oh, the role he was in, it wasn't him. Like he didn't get the chance to be this and that. But like, if you watch, they gave him chances to be a pick and roll kind of jumbo creator. Like they tried. And no knock on Lonzo. Like it's okay if you can't, if your game doesn't allow you to do that. Like it's no knock on him. But like he isn't able to get into the paint and consistently tilt defenses. It's not his game, right? So if you paid attention to how the Pelicans, once they started to play better, it kind of sucked because they ended up getting some injuries at the wrong times. But they ended up, right, transition point guard was Lonzo, right? Once they got to half court, that's when Zion came alive. They started implementing point Zion. And that's when they started to see differences. And they moved Lonzo off ball because obviously he's a really damn good connective passer and he really understands how to attack closeouts. He's a damn good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's it's okay that Lonzo isn't Luka. Like it's okay. Right. And I think people just think because he said in his presser, oh, I wanted to be here because they're going to allow me to be me. And I think so many people are taking that the wrong way. They think that,
agreed,
like he's going to be, Billy's going to be like, all right, here you go, Lonzo, make something happen. Like no, it's.
Well, do we remember watching him in college too? Like, I understand in college he was like, but also like the dude is a transition freak. He's super fast. He's got a big frame, but like, he's just never been this. I know people think too, looking at him, and they know he has great size and length, and so they assume like, oh, this is the guy who should be able to play well in the pick and roll and get to the rim and all this stuff. But he's just never been that player. And I don't think with a guy like DeRozan, who one has been that player his whole career, and two had one of the best playmaking seasons of his career last season out of the pick and roll, it would be absurd for them to just be like, no, we're gonna let Lonzo do something that he's never really proven he could do yet. And so I don't know. And I understand that people, they're like, well, he's the point guard. He's the future of the team but point guard can mean different things on different teams, the role that they play. Yep. He will have the ball in his hands. He'll push the pace. He'll bring it up the floor. Like you said, great connected passer. He'll be plenty involved. But in terms of thinking he's going to be the guy, at least in my opinion, maybe this changes, who knows, and he flips a switch. But to think that he is the guy who's going to be running the show completely in the half court is just not knowing his game, in my opinion. Like it's just, he's not exactly who he is. If he can do that, yep, great. I would love to see it. It's just, I know that DeMar can do it. I don't know that he can do it.
Exactly.
100%. And it's, when you look at these players individually, you see these, it's not flaws, but it's limitations, right? You have to find the right partners for them. You have to find the right fit. And, DeMar doesn't fit with every team. I don't think Lonzo fits with every team. But they fit really, really well next to Zach and next to Vooch. AK did a fantastic job getting both of them here. And when the free agency was going down, and we were in like a group DM, and some guy was like, "We got to get DeMar DeRozan. We got to get DeMar DeRozan." We hadn't signed Alex Caruso yet. It was just like right after Lonzo, and I was like, "Man, I don't know about that. Like we don't. I don't know if we have enough defense. I don't know if we have like everything that we need here." Then we got DeMar, Caruso, and Tony Bradley, and like it fit perfectly well. It was after Caruso that I was like, okay, now go get DeMar, because now you got your point of like defender off the bench that can come in and kind of give him a spell, and some of that's proven, right? Because Torban Jr. has taken on that role a little bit, but he's unproven still, and I didn't want to do that to our defense, but they fit so well together. I really think they're going to have phenomenal offense. Right. And then, and I want to ask, if Larro, if I could, I wanted to ask a question real quick, specifically about Troy Brown Jr. Do you guys have any predictions about him, about either his role or what his production is going to be like, or how we're going to be talking about him, a year from now? Larro, I'll start with you on this one.
Man, I this is a hot take. I think it may not be a hot take. Like, if people understand what I'm trying to say, it won't be a hot take. But like, I really feel like with a full season of a training camp, Billy continuing to let him know what he wants out of him, not dealing with the Scott Brooks, situation where he just doesn't know what he needs to do to get on the floor. Like, I see a guy that you can have on the floor that's very interchangeable. He can be off ball. He can be on ball a little bit. He's already a good connective passer. But here is where the take comes. I look at TBJ, and I think he could be like our Kevin Huerter in a way, like a guy that you can run some pick and roll with. And I just hope this is where the take fizzles a little bit. Is I just hope that he can make his threes. Like, I just see a guy like the bubble. I just envision that the bubble on ball reps that he had. And I just like, man, like if he can really tap into that offensively and be like a secondary playmaker for this team, like, dude, it would be huge. He'd be huge. So for me, I just see a guy like Kris. What exactly are you looking for? Like,
I mean, are you thinking he's a restricted free agent at the end of this year?
Mm-hmm.
I think his qualifying offer is $7.2 million. And this is a team that we know is going to be flirting with the tax next year, just based on the contracts we have. So is he going to be a guy where you're like, pay the man? Is he, because he's going to have a crucial role this year at that small forward. We haven't had a good small forward since Mike Dunleavy, I think I said last week. I hoped so much for Otto Porter, because when Otto Porter was good and playing well, this team was completely different. So that spot is really crucial for him to be that connective passer. I offensively, he's got to make his shots, because I like him as a secondary passer and a connective passer, and he can run some pick and roll. But I don't know how many opportunities he's going to have to do that with this squad, specifically with all the ball handlers we have this year. And so, what do you think is the swing skill that's gonna convince Bulls fans we need to keep this guy, even if it takes us into the tax next year? We need to retain this guy.
That's a damn good question.
I think it's just, it goes back to what we've already said, and it's as simple as just making his shots, because what we've seen from him is that he can be an adequate defender. I think that he is a strong secondary playmaking option off the bench. He's a guy that is, I don't think he's ever going to be I don't really see him as being a starter in this league. He's still very young, so that's a big plus for a guy like him. But I think it just comes down to making his shots, because I've loved everything about him since he's come into the league. Like, he has every like little bit of like a basketball player that you want. It's just, he's one of those guys. He's kind of like honestly, he's kind of like Io DeSumo in a lot of ways, because Io comes into the league and you're like, I like that guy. He's a good basketball player, and he's a smart basketball player, and he tends to make the right play. Now, Troy Brown Jr. can do. It's obviously not a perfect comparison. He can do more without the ball in his hands for sure. He's a better off-ball player. But still, in the sense of that kind of player that you're like, I like that guy. He's a good basketball player, but like, what does he do great? And you're like, well, I don't really know. And it's like, so it's hard to find exactly where he fits. It's like, well, as long as he can make shots, like, then that's a guy that can be really, that I think could be really good for you. He just needs to be able to knock down some threes and hit things more adequately. But yeah, so I think this year is going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be pivotal if he can just be a solid rotation piece for you. I do think he's going to get the full blown opportunity to be that guy for them, because like I said, with Derrick Jones Jr., which is why this will be interesting to watch in training camp, this is another guy, Troy Brown Jr., that they went out and got, and clearly I think because they added him into their deadline, they clearly were interested in him. And I think AK said as much, when they first got him, like, he's the guy that I've had my eye on for a while. So clearly they like this guy, and they want to give him an opportunity, and they see a lot of potential there. And I think it's the same thing with Kobe. It's why they've kept Kobe. They see something, so the opportunities are going to be there. But at the end of the day, it's just if he doesn't just start making some more of his open shots and making some threes, it's going to be hard to find exactly what kind of role he can play on this team. So I'll be very curious to watch what happens. I do think he's going to end up being a fine rotation piece for them this year, and whether or not that nets him a new contract on the team, that'll be interesting.
Okay, so I thought about it.
So what you're saying is you weren't listening to Elias?
No. I was doing multitasking.
No, please think about it.
No, I definitely agree with everything you said. Like, no, I think he's going to be a great rotation piece. Like, I think he's definitely going to make his shots, no doubt about that. But like, Kris, I think if you want to bring in like the cap situation and saying, okay, this is the money we have left. What are you going to do for us, Troy? Like, we know you need to knock down your shots, but what else are you going to offer? What else is it that you are going to do that we're like, you know what, we can add, we can give you another contract because we think you're useful. And I think if you look at this team and like point of attack defending, Caruso is obviously number one when it comes to that. And then after that, it kind of you kind of like tossing up maybe DJJ, maybe, but I don't know about that. But I think we saw last season we brought it up before, but what he did against Kyrie, right? He really defended Kyrie really well on ball, navigating screens, really being an irritant. So I think if you want to talk about a swing skill, I think that if he can really show that he could be a consistent point of attack defender, like that second guy that after Caruso, that you're like, okay, I think that's one of the ways. And for me, I think the biggest way that just having that secondary guy that you can throw on point of attack.
And I think there's probably going to be times during the season where you have Caruso and Troy Brown Jr. on the floor, and Troy Brown Jr. is taking point of attack just because of how good Caruso is as a help defender as well. He's a really, really phenomenal help defender as well. And that's what Billy Donovan told Troy when he first got here. This is your role. This is how you get minutes on the floor. Be a defender, be a pass out there. And I thought he was really coming into his own. Offensively, I think it's been a little underrated, and it's probably because it's a very small sample size. But when he was with the Bulls, he was really, really efficient at getting to the rim and also at getting the n-ones. Like he was, I got to look it up, but I think he shot 83% at the rim only in 13 games, obviously. But for his career, he's always been really, really good. He's never shot below. He shot 64%. 70%, 71%, and then this year he shot 83% with us. So if he can be a really, really nice off-ball cutter in that second unit, and you can have Caruso and Kobe and probably either Zach or Vooch or some other shooter out there from the starters, and that's going to be a good spot for him. No, Larro.
No, you're good. You're totally good.
I tried to slander Larro. I was just making a joke, Larro. I know you were listening to Elias.
No, I know you're a listener too. Yeah, do not worry. I know.
I was trying to make you laugh, and
I was trying
it got you worried.
So I was also listening to everything, but I was just trying to sit there thinking about like comparisons for Troy Brown Jr. Like, what can he be? Mm-hmm. And so, like, one name that came to my mind was like, is he like a Jeremy Lamb? Like, I don't know, like what he is.
Oh.
Like, so yeah. So I've been trying. I don't know. I was just trying to think of like names in my head of players that like maybe he can become. But honestly, when I'm thinking about it, I haven't even watched like enough Jeremy Lamb film. But I just go like, maybe like that's the kind of, because like I think about, is Lamb like a great outside shooter? Like, no. But like, is he a great like shooter in general? Like, I don't think he is, right? Like, he's not a great shooter. So like, I don't know. That was the name that came to my mind. But like, that's someone who's in the league a while and he holds a job, and that's how I look at Troy Brown Jr. He's like that. He'll be in the league. Like, he's not going anywhere. Like, he's gonna keep getting opportunity because he's like a young kind of. He's still like a kind of that high upside guy. It's just, is he gonna be that? And Is he going to be that kind of player, or can he be more than that? Like,
I have a question for you, both of you guys. And let's say, I'll just ask it straight out. What would be, what percentage from 3 would you be okay from Troy? Like, okay, so it'll be a lot of catch and shoot because of, what we have on ball. So, like, I guess a good catch and shoot number for you guys, like that'd be passable, where you'd be like, you know what, we can do it. We can use that.
So if we look at his numbers the last few years, right, with in 2018-19, he shot 33%, but he only shot 60. He was 20 out of 60. The next year he attempted 162. He made 36% of them, which is, about league average. The next year, he only played 29 games versus the 69 games he'd played in the year before, but he still made about 36% of those shots on about 60 total attempts. So if he can stay league average, I mean, if he's 36%, I think that's good enough. If he can also be solid on the defensive end and be a nice connected passer, like I think that's a great baseline expectation. If he can just kind of maintain that, if he can get up into, 38, 39%, now we're really talking about a bench unit, because one of my main concerns of the bench unit is maybe a lack of outside shooting, because outside of Kobe, and even Kobe has not, even though I think he has a reputation as a pretty good catch and shoot shooter, his numbers, if you look at like the stats, suggest he hasn't been as good as his gravity, which suggests he is as a shooter. And Caruso obviously had a career year at 3, shooting 40%, but he's never been seen as a really,
Yeah, I mean, who you're on the court with helps so much, because I remember like checking it, and it just like you're right, Kobe he's obviously, everyone knows he's a scorer, but he's never been, his percentages so far, he's never been the most efficient player. But then once Vucevic got into the picture, I'm pretty sure Kobe was shooting 38% from catch and shoot threes, like 39. So he was creeping up there towards the high 30s, and for his catch and shoots, because just Vuce made it so much easier. And but yeah, I mean, with Troy, it's going to be really interesting to see. He's somebody who just, like, I agree 100% with the bench. It's just, I don't know, that worries me, because it's like the opposite problem of the offense, right? Like the defense on the bench, you're not too worried about. Like, I like the length, I like the defensive options they have, like especially with Caruso coming off the bench. It's just like you're not too worried about what the bench can do in terms of holding down the fort defensively. But when it comes to offense, I just don't know where it's coming from other than Kobe. And Kobe's not going to, Kobe might not be back until mid-November. So right off the bat, it's like, who's giving you anything on the offensive end? I mean, I hope, like, that's what I've honestly looked at Troy as, like, the guy that's like, maybe he could do something, because like you said, you brought up his rim percentages. Like, he is pretty acrobatic around the rim. Like, he's always been a decent finisher. Like, he's good at making his way inside. So like, it's just somebody's gonna have to step up and give you offense, because you're relying on a lot of unproven guys in that second unit, and you're relying on a lot of guys who have never been, like, no one's ever really scored that much. You're relying on Tony Bradley. You're relying potentially on Derrick Jones Jr. If it's not Jones Jr., it's Alize. And then you're relying on Caruso and Troy Brown Jr. And so it's just like, where's the offense coming from? And that's why I think it's going to be so important for them to stagger a guy like DeRozan into the second unit. And he'll have to be, he'll play the 4 or something. And then they're just going to be like, all right, go wild. Like, that's when he'll just be able to get his buckets whenever he wants, I think, off the bench. And that's why he'll still get his high. I don't think he's going to reach 20. He's reached 20, I think, the past like 8 years of his career. I don't think he'll get 20 points per game again this year. We'll see. But, he'll probably get 17, 18. And the reason he'll average that is because I think a big part of it will be, here's the second unit. Just do what you do. Like, just go get points. And with him and Kobe out there, eventually it might be fun. But I definitely think that DeRozan's going to be told just to go do whatever he wants with the second unit, because there's not going to be a lot of offensive potential there.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, that's some good stuff.
Hey, Larro, I got a question. After you're done, I got a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, what are some realistic, like, lineups you can see TBJ in? Like, if they stagger, Zach and DeMar.
Man, I think he could play in the starting lineup. Like if you took, like if your first sub is DeMar, bring in Troy Brown at the 3 instead. I mean, I don't think that lineup. I think that lineup actually improves defensively, obviously.
Yeah.
But Troy Brown Jr. can play your point of attack defense and let Lonzo play help, let Pat play help, if, assuming Pat's healthy at this point. I think that's a really nice mix of shooting and defense on that squad. I think your rim pressure is basically only Zach at that point. But if Troy Brown can continue to have that kind of gravity as a finisher and cutter, that would be a really fun lineup to see in my mind. I would also, I mean, I can see Troy Brown filling in at the two spot for Kobe early on in the season.
Yeah.
If he can, depending on who's out there, if you could slide Zach to the 3 or have DeMar or Vooch out there, someone else to provide some spacing. I think Troy can slide down to the 2, and having him and Caruso out there both at the point of attack, offenses are going to be really mad every time. It's just so annoying.
I do want to say
leave me alone?
I don't want to dodge your question, but the one that I think would be that I want to ask you guys what you think is with Vooch. Do you think, like, what if he's the first sub out there because they want to run fast? Like, what if they put in Tony Bradley and they also want to, because if you want to, you're going to, I don't know what the rotation, I'm just interested in what Vooch's rotation is going to be like, because you have such bad front court depth, but also I think they might want to run fast, and you might want to have, Vooch subbed out pretty early. He's the first guy, and then he's going to be able to come and finish out the half for you, and then he reserves his energy so he can play more minutes at the end of the game, because he's their best center, obviously, and he might not be anywhere. I think he's better on defense than some people give him credit for, just because he's a huge body and he knows where to be. He's a smart player. He might not be didn't he have one of the worst verticals at his combine, I think, the year that he went? But he's just his vertical's horrible and he's not a rim protector, but he knows where to be, position himself. So but I'm just curious how they're going to run him, because I think since he's their best center and they're weak at that position, they're going to want him to play a lot in the fourth quarter. So I just wonder what his rotation is going to be. Are they going to take him out early? Is DeMar going to be the first guy off the bench? So I was just curious. I don't know. I'm curious to know what you guys think about how they're going to use Vooch.
We talked about this because I think if you want to run in transition, you can still do that with Vooch on the floor. Just have Vooch be your trailer in transition, because him as a trailer 3 is a really nice threat. But if you run,
if you take it out to him,
if you want to, I think a lineup I would love to see at some point in the season is having Patrick Williams as your small ball 5, with Derek Jones Jr. at the 4, Lonzo at the 3, Zach at the 2, Caruso at the 1. That transition team would be really phenomenal and fun. And I think, a lot of this depends on Pat's growth defensively this year.
Yeah.
But he's great. He's got great rim protection instincts, and he's getting taller, apparently, and bigger. He's already freaking huge. But if he ends up being 6'10", with that kind of body and that kind of, vertical ability, I don't see why you can't run him as a small ball 5, especially as you get later into the season and teams are starting to not care as much. I would love to see that lineup out there. I think that would be a lot of fun, personally.
And again, maybe with the depth that they decided at the position, maybe that's what they want. What the front office, maybe the front office has that in mind, because they see him as that versatile. I don't know, but that would be fun.
That's such a great question, because, like Kris said, you can still run with Vooch on the floor, right? You could, we could toss it back to him if he doesn't have an open shot. You could flow right into a dribble handoff, Chicago action, boom, you're right into your offense. But man, if he goes to the bench first, that's such a good question. Who would you want? Pat could throw you could throw Pat out there, but do you want to put that much pressure on him that early? But I think he can handle it. But anyway,
it's got to be Tony Bradley then.
Well, it'll be Tony. It will be Tony. That's just the rim protection. They're clearly putting a lot of, and Tony's a fine rim runner, but they're putting a lot of just with how they, again, going back to the front court depth, just how they organize things. They're putting a lot of weight on Tony Bradley's shoulders. And I do think, to be fair, he's somebody who's always had a plus throughout his career. he's somebody, last year I think he was like a +3 or something, estimated box plus minus while he was on the court, or maybe defensive it was. But still, like, he's every year of his career, he may not have a ton of games under his belt, but he's always been like, when he's on the court, you know what you're going to get. He's not going to shoot you in the foot. He's pretty reliable. Do a little bit of what he can protect the rim for you, and he's the perfect kind of player that deserves that boost in minutes. He's like he's that guy who's he's gone around a little bit from Utah 76ers to OKC, and he's gotten a little bit of more minutes, and he did a good job backing up Embiid. So I like that the Bulls took this chance, because he's that perfect type of player that you're like, who deserves more of a chance? That guy. But I just am interested about how he'll do in that role, because they're putting a lot of weight on his shoulders by just making him the main backup. Because as much as people are so excited for Marco, and I like the type of player Marco is, but that guy's never stepped on the NBA court. We might not even see him. Like, with the Pat injury, it's different. Who knows? But like, if Pat's healthy and the whole team's healthy, we might not see that guy other than garbage time. So it's like, the plan's not to run Marco out there right now. At least I don't think. Maybe training camp changes that. So they're putting a lot of weight on Tony Bradley's shoulders, and I'm very curious to see how he handles that. And I do think he'll handle it well. But that's one of the underlooked storylines, I think, because if Vooch even misses a game, your starting center is Tony Bradley.
Yep. Yeah, I think Marco's got to be your victory cigar, and that's it at this point in the season. There's no. He's getting the Felicio minutes this year, unfortunately. Just
probably.
I don't know how I forgot we had Tony Bradley, but anyway.
Well, Larro, I have this question then, which is, which guy that is not clearly in the rotation now do you think earns those minutes by the end of the season?
The
like
five?
Not because of injuries, but earns the minutes. So you got guys like Derrick Jones Jr. I don't think is for sure in the rotation. Alize Johnson, I don't know for sure is in the rotation. Marco, Ayo, Javonte Green, Stanley Johnson, like all those guys. I'm not asking about star players. I'm asking about obscure bench players that may not receive the floor.
No. I know. I that's what we do. But I want to say a name because I'm kind of biased, I guess, because like I said, like on Mark's pod, like I loved him coming out of high school. I thought he was going to be a stud.
Stanley Johnson.
Stanley.
Oh, you're a big Stanley guy.
I'm bullish on Stanley. Like I really, I really feel like him being on a team that they're not going to depend on him to score the ball. Like he could just kind of play his role, but he's still young. You just never know. But like, I'll put Stanley to the side, but he's a name. I'll just drop him right there. But Alize, I would say Alize because I think,
that's what mine would be too.
Yeah, like I just think when he's had his opportunity to play, like he's taking full advantage of it. So I'm kind of eager to see how he looks. So Alize.
That's good. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I definitely think if anyone outside the rotation, right? Because I think 9-man is TBJ right now, and then he's the 9th guy, and then I think 10-man, you had Derrick Jones Jr., and then maybe the person who's maybe like DJJ loses his spot to Alize or something. But because I do think Alize, while he doesn't nearly have the sheer athleticism and like the verticality that Derrick Jones Jr. does, he has the bulkier frame. He has the actual more traditional power forward body, and his rebounding's great. Like, I mean, he's a really solid rebounder. Things just need to stick to his hands, and he clearly is like someone who isn't afraid to. And not saying that DJJ is afraid, but he's not afraid to take. He does look like Jimmy Butler with his hair, but he's not afraid to take contact. So he just seems like a guy who you might be able to throw in there, and if a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. just keeps getting bullied around too much.
I real quick, Chris, just real quick splash. No, but I also would like to see him in like kind of, because some of the games I've watched, like I've seen some like connective passing flashes from him. So I would kind of like to see him in a short role, like in the short role, and see what he can do. So that's all I would like to see that.
That's good. All right, let me kind of morph the question a little bit. Who do you think is going to be the most improved player on the Bulls this year? Because I've got two guys in mind for this that I think they will, and I also feel like how far the team go depends a lot on them.
Yeah.
And the two names that I think are the most important swing players on this roster are Patrick Williams and Troy Brown Jr. And I think Kobe's probably the third guy there. But he's going to be in a more specialized role. But I think Patrick Williams, especially defensively, is going to be super, super key. So I think that's my vote for most improved player. I think it's going to be, and it's got to be Patrick Williams, if anybody. But I want to see what you guys think about it.
It's a tough question because, it's a tough question because I think the obvious answer is definitely Patrick Williams. I mean, it's just this team. I completely agree that this team is only going to go long term as far as he takes them. I think it's just he's somebody who, especially defensively, he's going to be the anchor of their defense once he's fully healthy. And he's definitely, I think, the right pick. But I'm trying to think if I had to throw another name in there who I think could be like, people would be like, whoa, he's having a great season. I guess let me put this turn on its head a little bit. And I'm not going to say that this guy's going to be the most improved, but somebody that I think could get way more respect this year than they ever have is Vucevic. I think he's going to get more respect than he ever has this year. And it's just because he's never played around this much talent in his career. You could say that for, Levine and stuff too. But at least, Levine's the flashy playmaker type. He's the guy. He's going to be in commercials when the season starts. People know his name. They know Levine. So while I agree he needs to get more respect. It's not that there's a lack thereof right now. I mean, the people still understand who he is, and he's talked about a lot. Same with DeRozan. Everyone knows that DeRozan is four-time All-Star. He also deserves a little bit more respect because I think people focus too much on what he doesn't do versus what he does do really well, because DeRozan is one of the most unique players in the league, one of the most unique offensive players in the league right now. When we look at today's NBA, it's ridiculous how he's been able to maintain the scoring level that he's had while just completely ignoring the three-pointer and just not dominating the mid-range game and being this pick-and-roll like guru. I think he deserves more respect for that. But with Vucevic, he's just someone who's flown so under the radar for so long in terms of his respect and around the league. He's truly like he could be this season like this third. He's going to be like third best center in the East. Because what you have Embiid, and then you can have Bam, and then what? Maybe Vooch. And who knows with Bam? Bam's definitely the better two-way player, of course. But depending on how the season goes, Vooch could technically be the second best center in the East. So it's just I think that he's somebody that this year on this team, if they play well, they start winning, they get the national attention, people are going to be like, whoa, this dude's pretty good. He averages 20, he can average 23 and 11 easily. He can rack up freaking 16 boards like nobody's business. He's one of the more versatile offensive bigs that we've seen, honestly. He's just flown under the radar. So I think this season he's somebody that he might not be the most improved, obviously. But I just think most improved in terms of maybe some fans' eyes. I never realized that guy was that good.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it is. It is such a great point.
But in terms of your specific question, I agree with Patrick Williams 100%, and I have nothing to add.
But I appreciate the tangent was well worth it for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Man, I mean, Pat Will, Pa, my guy, I would go there. But another player I think that I think he'll have his first plus field goal percentage year, more efficiency in his offensive game. And I think Kobe, man, I think Kobe will be I think he'll take a leap in efficiency this year. Like you said, Eli, at the beginning of the show, like you said, you really saw him more comfortable with Vooch, once Vooch was there, and with a whole season with him and having another playmaker in DeMar, and I could just see him having an excellent offensive season. So that's another name I would throw out there.
Yeah, I think off the bench, it's just a two with less pressure. He's going to be able to do he's going to be able to just kind of focus on. He's not going to have to focus on the playmaking too much. I think putting him next to Caruso is going to help too off the bench, just because defensively Caruso is going to help make up for a lot of Kobe's mistakes and a lot of his. And Kobe said to change roles too often over the past couple of years. I was so high on Kobe, and I still love him as a player when he was coming out of the draft. I just think that this team hasn't helped him really over the last 2 years in terms of his role, and he's had to do so many different things. So I do think this year he could really he could really take a huge step in the right direction, just because there's not gonna be as much pressure on his shoulders, and he'll have better playmaking around him. So agreed 100%. It's a good pick.
Yeah. So how long have we been going? What, an hour and 20? Man, all right. So I know you probably want to get some sleep and lay down and relax. So before
I'll
you
be
go,
checking my fantasy football lineup for like an hour beforehand,
me
debating who I want to start. So don't worry. Yeah,
me too. But I just wanted to ask you one more question, kind of a fun one, right? So, if you could pick one player from Bulls history, and obviously you can't pick Derek, can't pick Jimmy, can't pick MJ, Scotty, but a role player or someone that you think can take this team to another level, if you would insert them into the rotation, who would you pick and why? Elias.
I gotta open this up. Oh my god. Okay, well, this guy isn't really. I mean, he's not necessarily a role player, but I mean, could you put Horace Grant on this team would be pretty great, right? Like, if we're talking about, like, again, my keyword this whole time is the front court depth situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you move Patrick Williams to the bench just for the year, you start Morris. I mean, your rim protection. You're gonna have elite rim protection. You're gonna have. I mean, he obviously could score a little bit for you. It's not gonna be something you need, but like, talk about two-way play. That's, if you just want strong two-way play, somebody who's gonna add elite depth to that position. I would love Horace on this team. Like, yeah, he doesn't give you the 3-point shot that you might want. Carmelo Anthony, dude. I would Bulls legend Melo.
Bulls legend Carmelo Anthony.
Cup of coffee, Melo.
Yeah, I want Hoodie Melo on the team. But so for me, I was thinking about this, and I think Horace would be a lot of fun in the confines of what this team is and what they need, and just, yeah, it would be a good time. I would pick Horace.
I love that,
man. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm gonna pick another 6'10" guy, but from
Carmelo.
from more of our recent past.
I think I know you're going to pick. You're taking him. God dang it. All right, go ahead.
I'm going to get so much flack for Twitter. I'm going to turn off my Twitter for a couple of days.
Okay, never mind. Never mind. You're not going to take him then.
I'm not going to take him. I really think
Taj?
I know. I really think
people would love you for Taj.
Drew Gooden.
No, I think Nikola Mirotic would really own on this squad right now. He would be a perfect 4. He would be a perfect 4 off the bench. He'd be a perfect small ball 5 for this team. His defense was so underrated. His passing is great. His shooting, while streaky, he had incredible shooting gravity. Even when he was bricking every shot, teams guarded him like he was a flamethrower. I love Nikola Mirotic. I still think I would, when he's having some contract dispute with Barcelona right now, because they want him to take a pay cut, and I'm like, please come take our spot. See you, Stanley Johnson. Bring Nikola Mirotic back. I would love him back. But I know he has a bad reputation for a lot of Bulls fans, and I will admit that he excelled best when he was like one of the top bananas in the offensive hierarchy. And he struggled really bad as just like a spot up guy in the corner. So I think if you could make him your like secondary playmaker off the bench, he would really make this team fun.
And if he just understood his role, if he was
cool with the role, for sure. But at the same time, answering your question, I don't think that makes us championship contenders. I think it gets us closer. It really solidifies us as a strong playoff squad. I'm gonna see Red Fred's gonna DM me about this. I know it, because he's gonna be like, "What are you talking about? Nikola Mirotic sucks in the playoffs every year." But he would be really fun. I don't know if you can. To answer your question realistically, though, I don't know if you could add one player from Bulls history if you take out all those like all-star or all-NBA guys.
Horace, but he was an all-star, so yeah, and an all-NBA guy. So
yeah, if you could. if you had to add a role player, I don't think we could really
kind of
be a
meant like
championship.
another jump, like another like
Okay.
instead of like even thinking about the play-in, it would be like top 6 seed, top 4 seed. You know, I
Yeah.
guess more of a top 4 seed, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, then I'll stick with my answer because I don't think anyone can take us to a championship squad unless you add a guy like, I mean, if you had to add one guy, like if we opened it up to anyone besides MJ and Pippen, let's say
that's more so what I meant. I didn't, you know, so
Carlos
I mean, Prime Rose.
wait.
Like, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Wait, no, I meant like
Jimmy Butler,
if you subtract those top 4 guys,
I know. Yeah,
it doesn't matter if they're an all-star 1 year, 2 years, whatever. But like as long as it's not like Prime D Rose, you know, Jimmy, top 15 player Jimmy, you know, but
can I pick fourth in MVP voting year Joakim Noah?
Fourth in MVP.
Can I pick Prime Joakim Noah? Because that would be fun.
Oh man, of course, fine. You can,
all right, just say
Joe.
your answer.
You can say Joe. No. Me myself, I was going to say Lou. I was going to say Lou All.
Okay.
He
was my second choice.
He was my second. Yeah, he was my second.
I love Lou. I would love to see him in today's game, and I also think like you could start him at the 4. You could play him at the 3. You know, like so. Yeah, Lou All is the guy for me. Like I love this game. Dude guarded LeBron as hard as he could ever, and competed. So I mean that's who my pick. I would love to have Lou All on this team.
And he allowed no dunks. No dunks were had.
That is very true. That is very true.
Yeah, Lou All is my second one. I think that's a good pick. And anyone who can help, like I love that Lou can just he would fit. I think he is a perfect like player for this front office too. I think he's exactly the kind of player this front office would love to have and like love to get their hands on. He just fits like everything about what it seems like this current team wants. Ben Gordon would be a lot of fun just because of the off the bench score. But Kobe can kind of be your new Ben Gordon, I guess.
Yeah, Kyle Korver, 2009 Rip Hamilton. We get some others. Carmelo Anthony, man, that's just great.
Why didn't he come? He could have just not old Melo, but like first time, man. Like my goodness. Anyway,
that starting lineup would have been Rose, Butler, Melo, Mirotic, Noah. With your bench had Taj, Dunleavy. You know, I can't remember who else was. Doug McDermott was on that squad. Man, that would have been fun.
Okay, so I'm not saying.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that this shouldn't have happened. It should have 100%, and I would have taken it for sure. But are we sure? Not just from like watching the rest of I'm not one of those Carmelo haters. Don't worry, I still respect Carmelo. But are we sure? Are we not sure that like putting Melo on that team, like I just don't know. Like with him and Rose, I just don't exactly know what I don't know how the fit would have been. It would have been really interesting.
I think it's a fair concern. I think it's fair to wonder if that would have worked any better than what happened. I think it's fair, but it would have been fun
with anyone. Carmelo butting because Carmelo not being the true number 1 guy and having to be with like an MVP Derrick Rose. I just really wonder how that would have gone over. Just because Carmelo, it was so hard for him not to be like the dude.
That's fair.
But,
by the way. Before we go, I have to bring attention to your shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Because now that I've talked about Joakim Noah, Mr. Eli has a shirt with the famous Joakim Noah quote about I never heard anyone say they want to go to Cleveland on vacation. So
like my favorite shirt. Shout out Obvious Shirts. We're partners with them over at Bleacher Nation. So I love this one. You can go buy it online and at obviousshirts.com. But yeah, I wear this one around, and I always get comments on it every single time. And I think everyone knows. They're like, "Yeah, agreed." Even if it's not a Bulls fan, they're like, "Agreed." Why would you go there on vacation?
That's true. Yeah. Thad Young. I know Luis wants Thad Young on this team. I agree. I mean, I would love Thad Young. Would have been really nice on this team.
Thad Young. It sucks that they had to get rid of him because he really on this team would have been He fills so many holes. It's why like getting rid of him and then not being able to steal Paul Millsap like really hurt, because Paul Millsap too would have just been so helpful for what this team needed.
Well, when the Blazers inevitably implode in midseason and they're selling off parts, we can trade Derek Jones Jr. back for Larry Nance.
Okay.
From Portland. Yeah, or Thad. I wish we could trade for Thad. Yeah, but can we? I don't think we can afford Thad. I'll have to look at the cap, but I think we're close. But Derek Jones Jr. is like 9.7, and I think Thad is 15 or really close to 15 million this year. But anyways,
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, I won't get into cap minutia, but it would have been nice to have Thad back on this team for sure. And I know he wanted to be here. I hate the business thing sometimes.
Yeah. I was listening to Joakim on what was that, the Knucklehead podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he said that he still deals with like people walking up to him like, so what'd you say about Cleveland? Like,
Yeah,
I'm sitting there, I'm like, who to this day still is like come on. But
and their feelings about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But hey, it has been a total blast having you on the show tonight. I know it was Hoops After Dark, you know what I mean? But before we let you go, but before we let you go, like, is there anything that you would like to plug or anything like that for the people that are in here?
I mean, BleacherNation.com. You can read all my work over at BleacherNation.com. You can follow our Twitter accounts at BN_Bulls. You can follow me on Twitter. It's on the screen, I think, like right over here. And but it's also, I mean, there's podcasts too, right? So at Schuster_Elias. That's at SCHUSTER_ELIAS. I always wonder when people spell things out if anyone's like, oh yeah, let me like rewind that and write down what it was. So, whatever. but yeah, so. But if you really need the content, at BN_Bulls on Twitter and BleacherNation.com, you can find all my work over there.
Well, you do excellent work, Elias. We always appreciate you, and I've been meaning to, as you know, I've been meaning to have you on for a little bit now. But you're a very busy man. You're a very busy man.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun. Anytime you guys want to talk, I'm here for it. Next time I'll have a drink with me, and I'll be wearing like a low cut V-neck. Maybe have a cigar. We'll really get this the late night vibe going. But no, I appreciate it. Anytime you guys want to talk, I'm here for it.
Well, you know, when we're 10 games over 500, you know, halfway through the season, we have you back on. That better be the vibe.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's gonna be my vibe just at like 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. If they're 10 games over 500, I'm just gonna have a scotch in my hand. I'll be like Jordan. I'll just be like Jordan.
Can't tell us nothing, man. You can't tell us nothing. I'm not gonna go on a tangent, but anyway, like again, man, if you whoever's gonna listen, whoever's watching right now, like guys, like follow this guy, read his stuff. Elias, he's the man. And I'm pretty sure if you didn't know anything about him before tonight, like you had some fun with him tonight, yes, and you learned a lot. Kris, man, any closing thoughts, anything like that?
I'm just excited to start the season. I know, Elias, I know you're excited. We talked pre-show about how excited you are for the offseason to be over and to have some training camp storylines. So I just want to ask you, what is the storyline you're most looking forward to seeing how it plays out this year?
Probably. Well, honestly, if we're going to talk about in terms of impacting winning, I would just say like how's the defense going to look, because it's going to be it's not a fun storyline necessarily to follow, but it's probably the most important. Are they going to be a bottom 5 defense in the league, or are they going to be like the 18th? Because that's going to be a big difference, versus being an 18th, the 18th defense in the league versus being like the 26th or 7th. That's going to be a significant difference. So for me, I'm going to be really curious. Billy Donovan, known for his defensive coaching a lot of the times. Last year he made the team look a lot better than a lot of people thought they'd look on the defensive end. They finished 12th. I don't think people should read too much into that, but still, he's a defensive-minded head coach. A lot of people forget that. So I think that's the most important storyline. If they can be even average on defense, I'm not concerned about the offense. Then they'll be they'll be in the mix for one of those higher, well, like a 6 hopefully seed in the playoffs if their defense is even average. But we'll see. That's the most important thing because it does look like it's going to suck. So,
well, I hope you're right, and I can't wait to read about it when we do get the answer at Bleacher Nation. So thanks so much, Elias, for joining us tonight. And Larro, I'll let you kick us off.
Hey, it's been fun tonight, fellas. And for Bulls 101, the people that love us, we'll have another great show coming next week. But as for tonight, peace out.